Hey, what's up guys? So a lot of people think that getting started on YouTube is super expensive and you have to spend a ton of money on equipment. I'm going to show you some of the things that I've tried and learned over the past few months to get your channel started on a budget. So here we go. Alright guys, so the way I structured this video is I broke it up into some key points, and I'll have links down in the description if you want to jump right to any of those points without watching the whole video. I recommend you watch the whole video because I'm going to go over some things that I learned and hopefully they'll help you out too. So the areas that broke it down into are figuring out a topic for your channel, planning your videos, your sound, your lighting, your camera, your computer system, and the editor that you're going to be using. So let's jump right into figuring out a topic for your channel. All right, so the first is figure out your topic. So what do I mean by figure out your topic? What I mean is figure out a genre or a topic that you want to cover on your channel. So for instance, if you want to do gameplay, do a gameplay channel. Don't do a gameplay and a blogging channel, because that'll start diluting the audience that you want to reach and kind of make people unsure as to what you're all about. So for instance, on my channel, I do technical reviews and tutorials. If I ever wanted to start gaming, I wouldn't start doing the gameplay in this channel. I would probably start a separate channel and maybe link those two together, cross-promote between them, but I would keep them as two separate channels because those would be going after two different audiences. All right, next up is planning your video. This is really, really important, and this is why I put it as one of the first things over equipment even. So when I say plan your video, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to script the entire thing. You could do bullet points and then fill in the gaps in between the bullet points with just natural talking, and that's typically what I try to do on most of my videos. I don't script my entire video. But the problem is if you don't plan it, if you don't at least have a general idea, then you get the videos that, you know, people are saying, okay, so next up we're gonna go here. Oh, wait, I forgot. Oh yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. You know, you've seen those videos, and when I see those videos, I click right off them, because if somebody doesn't put in some just basic time to outline their video, then, you know, I don't really feel like it's worth watching, and I'll click right off it and go find a similar topic for somebody that did plan their video. So planning is key, just at a basic level, just so you know what you're going to be talking about during the video. Okay, so now we're going to get into some of the equipment, and the first piece of equipment is sound. This is the most key piece of equipment when you're first starting out. You're probably going to hear a lot that if your video doesn't have great quality but the sound quality is good, people are more likely to stick around, and that's absolutely true. I mean, just think of the videos that you look at when you browse YouTube. If you click on a video where it's completely blown out and you can't tell what the person's saying, or it's real low and you got to crank up your volume, are you going to watch that video? Probably not. But if you have a video that's a little bit grainy and the audio quality is really good so you can hear everything they're saying, you're probably more likely to watch that video. At least I know I am. So when you're first starting out, you don't need to spend a ton of money on audio, but you should get something that's going to be decent. So like if you're recording on your phone, the microphone on your phone can work okay as long as you're close enough to it that it'll pick up your voice well. If you're using it in the method like I'm using it, I have my camera about 4 feet away. The internal microphone is not going to do good because it's going to pick up a lot of the room noise. So I need something that's a little closer. So I use a lavalier mic. It's plugged into the camera, it's wired, and the one I got was about 30 bucks. I'll have a link down in the description. And you can hear the audio quality on this is pretty good for a $30 mic. It's not stellar, it's not the best audio, but it's clear and you can hear everything I'm saying, and for the price of $30 it works really well. Some other options are microphones that plug directly into the computer through USB, and then you can record your audio on the computer. The Blue Snowball is one that I use, so if you see a tutorial video that I do on PC, Mac, or Windows, I'm probably using that Snowball, the Blue Snowball mic. It's a really affordable mic. I think it's about 60 bucks and it just plugs right in. The problem is if you're using a camera and you record your audio on the computer, you're gonna have to sync that up in post-production, but honestly that's not that big of a deal. And for the boost in audio quality that it gives you, that is a huge advantage. And some cameras, especially if you're just starting out, may not have a microphone input, so you may not have a choice but to do that. So the last one is a shotgun mic. A lot of these shotgun mics plug right into the camera, like the Rode video mic, and I've used that one. That one works really well. Again, if the camera is a little bit closer to you, that'll work in cell phones, and I believe it works in regular cameras. I haven't tried it. It's made for cell phones, so it may actually only work in cell phones. That one's about 60 bucks. So if you're shooting on your iPhone or Android phone, you may want to look into that, because if the camera's a little bit closer than it is in this kind of shot, then that's a really good option. I can't use that. Again, I have the same issue as the internal mic where it picks up too much of the room noise. So really, I'm using my Blue Snowball if I'm doing a tutorial on the computer, or like right now, I'm using the lavalier mic. And all these mics I'm talking about, I'll have links down in the description if you want to go check them out. All right, guys, so the second most important piece of equipment next to sound is lighting. And when I talk about lighting, I'm not talking about going out and spending a ton of money on lighting. In fact, if you have a big window in your house that gets really good sun exposure, you can just use that and you might be fine with that. And honestly, nothing is as good as natural light. So if you have a big enough window with enough light, set up your camera in front of the window facing away from it so you can use that light on you or whatever your subject is, and just go that route. That's great to get started with. If you want to up it a little bit and have a little more control over your light, what I did when I first started this channel is I built a light stand out of PVC, just some PVC pieces put together with a PVC at the top that I could clamp a shop light onto. So I bought some shop lights. I think it was like 30 bucks at the hardware store. But the issue I had with that is the light was a little too harsh. It was a little too direct, so I wanted to diffuse it some way. And I found a bunch of things on the internet about using wax paper and either taping it on or using a rubber band. I had a lot of trouble with that because I could not get the rubber bands to stay on, and after the light heated up, the tape would come off and stuff, so I was having no luck. So finally what I did was I went to the regular grocery store, and for $5, I think it was, I got a pack of 3 frosted, I think they're column clear, but they're really frosted white shower caps. These shower caps were great. You just take it, stretch it over the top. I use one as a fill light, actually. I'll show you right now. So it's just a shop light, and just it has this shower cap on it, and that's it. It diffuses the light really, really well. I use it as my backlight, but I used to use those as my primary lighting until I got this setup. These lights are the Lima Studio 700 watt kit I got for 60 bucks. I'll have a link down in the description if you want to check it out. I absolutely love these lights. I then, in the light that's in the ceiling above me, I got bulbs that matches the same Kelvin value as the light, or the bulbs that came with these lights, which was 6500 in this case. I just went to the hardware store, got some 6500 Kelvin bulbs, put them in the top. I have the same kind of bulb in this backlighting, so I have the same type of lighting all throughout my setup, and it works really well. When you're just starting out, just either use the window or build yourself a stand and get the shop lights. It works really, really well until you get some traction. And really, if you're just starting on YouTube, it may end up that you don't even end up continuing with your channel. It may be something you don't want to do. So try it with the shop lights, get that light going, and then if you decide to stick with YouTube like I did, you can start upgrading your equipment as you go. All right, guys, so next on the list is the camera. So a lot of you might be expecting this to be higher on the list, but in reality, this is a really good spot, because if you have good sound and you have good lighting, then the camera is a lot less important. So don't expect when you're first starting out to compete with like PewDiePie and Casey Neistat and MKBHD and Austin Evans. Those guys have been doing it a long time, and if you look at their really early videos, they're really not that good as far as quality. Well, except for Casey, he kind of started off well. But the other guys, you know, they started out with cheaper equipment, and it's not real good quality, but it doesn't matter. Their content was good, and they grew their channel, and they grew their equipment. That's kind of what I'm trying to do too. But you can just get started with your phone. Most of you have phones. Get started with your phone. Anything within the last few years is going to shoot decent video. Even a cheap phone, you know, a lot of the Blue phones, Blue gets a lot of heat, but they actually are decent phones and they shoot decent quality, and you can get those dirt cheap. You can go on Amazon Prime and get one of their Prime exclusive phones for like $60. I still use my iPhone as my B-roll camera. So if you see a lot of, you know, in my videos when there's some close-up shots of what I'm doing on my desk, that B-roll footage is shot on my iPhone 6s Plus. So go online. If you don't have a smartphone, go on Craigslist or eBay or check out the Prime exclusive phones and, you know, see if you can get one of those and just do the recording on that and then just copy it into your computer, or just do the editing right on the phone. If you want to upgrade a little bit, one mistake that I made was I saw a lot of videos about the Canon T3i, T2i, you know, it was all DSLR, you gotta get DSLR. The problem is, these are really excellent cameras, don't get me wrong, but the problem is some of those videos that were recommending the T2i and the T3i are older. And yes, you can get a T2i or a T3i for like $200, $250, and they're full DSLR cameras, and they do a really nice job, but it's really, really hard to get good focus with those cameras. You can get some an extension and use a Android tablet to have kind of a remote control, that a visual remote control that you can see what's going on. And I have a video on that. I'll put up a card and put a link in the description. But it's just really hard to get good focus with those cameras, especially if you're shooting with yourself. So I just recently got the camera that I'm using now. It's the Lumix G7. I really like it. I'm still experimenting. This is only my second video using this camera, but I really, really like it. And honestly, if I could have done it again, I would have kept using that iPhone 6s Plus or whatever Android phone I had at the time, would have kept using that until I had the money to go right to this Lumix. I never would have got the T3i. Again, it's a good camera, but it's a little bit outdated. It shoots in 1080p, but it's severely compressed, and honestly, I'm not even sure it's true 1080p. Canons are notorious for soft focus, much less so on the newer ones, but those older ones, the focus is always going to be soft, and I was personally never happy with it. But use your camera, use whatever camera you got, even if you got a camcorder from the mid-90s, use that. As long as you can get the footage into a computer to record it, if you got good sound and good lighting, you're going to be good to go. All right, so for these next two, I had kind of a hard time deciding what order to put them in, and it's the computer for editing and then the editing software. And the reason why I had a hard time is for some editing software, you don't need a computer. So if you're recording on your phone, you can get software on your phone to edit it and upload it directly to YouTube directly from your phone. So depending on what kind of video you're shooting and your editing style, that might be enough. You might be able to just shoot on your phone, edit it directly on there, and send it right up to YouTube, all from your phone, no computer required and no software required other than the software that you get for your phone. So you may want to go that route, but if you want a little more control, then you may want to put together a computer or use your computer that you have. And again, you don't need a top-of-the-line computer, especially when you're just starting out. You're probably going to be shooting in 1080p, probably not 4K. And a lot of computers, I have a gaming computer that I built like 6 years ago. It has a really slow i5 processor in it. That's what I do all my editing on. And sure, the render times may not be the fastest, but it's completely smooth on that machine. You can get machines on Craigslist for like $100 that'll be fine for editing video, and throwing a better graphics card in there will help a little bit. The processor for editing and rendering is what's impacted the most. So even an older i7 processor would be better off than my i5. I'm eventually going to have to upgrade mine because I've been starting to shoot things in 4K. So it's not quite cutting it anymore. But just look at budget machines. Even probably an i3 processor for 1080p would be just fine. Don't go and buy a top-of-the-line editing machine. You don't need it. Just get what you need and start your editing. You don't have to spend a ton of money on the hardware. All right, so last up is the editing software. So again, if you're editing right on your phone and sending it right up to YouTube from there, you can kind of skip this section. I'm not going to have anything on phone software because I've never done any editing on the phone, so I can't help in that area, unfortunately. On the computer side, both PC and Mac, I can help a little bit because I've tried out a bunch of these different applications. So on PC or on Mac for absolutely free, you have iMovie, which is a basic editor, but it's actually really good. I did my first few videos on my channel using iMovie on an old MacBook Air, which is really a underpowered Mac, but it worked really well, and it was 1080p video. So iMovie will let you splice together your video, add basic transitions, and send it up to YouTube. It works just fine for that. Something on the PC that I don't like quite as much as iMovie, but it's Windows Movie Maker. It's also free, and it's a real basic editor. But again, you can splice your movies together, add transitions, send it up to YouTube. You're good to go. Instead of using any of those, the first piece of software I would recommend, this is available both on Mac, actually on Linux as well, and Windows, would be Davinici Resolve. This editor is fantastic. It's a fully featured editor. It's used in the studio version is used in the professional market, but they have a completely free version that's feature rich. It's got effects, transitions, you can do motion tracking in it, but its core competency is color correction. The color correction and color grading that you can do with this software is absolutely incredible. You know, Premiere and Final Cut Pro have some good color correction and color grading tools in them, but nothing like Davinici Resolve. It's fantastic in that area, and the stuff that you can do with the free version is ridiculous. You can edit and color grade and transitions and all that stuff all the way up to 4K video, export it and upload it to YouTube for completely free. The next piece of software that I would recommend, and I think this is only on Windows though, is Hitfilm 4. I've used that, have really good luck with it. Again, it's free. That one's focus, where Davinici Resolve was really focused on the color correction and stuff. Hitfilm, apart from being a full-featured editor, is really focused on effects. So if you're looking for particle effects, or you want to do some basic effects, like something you could do with After Effects, but on a much more basic level, then Hitfilm is a really good option to look at. Again, it's completely free. In my use, it was a little bit slower than Davinici Resolve, and it didn't support as many formats, so I found myself transcoding the videos before bringing them into Hitfilm more than I had to with Davinci, but it works really, really well. If you want to shell out money to pay, which I would not recommend when you're starting out, I would use one of those free pieces of software until you find out that this is something you really want to do, and then upgrade later if you find you need to. But Adobe Premiere and Final Cut Pro are my two favorite. I've used Sony Vegas or whatever it's called now, Studio. I'm not a fan of that, and it's just preference. It's not bad software. I just prefer the other two. So again, when you're starting out, look at the free stuff, but if you want to upgrade a little bit, Premiere and Final Cut are two of my favorites, but you should really get the trial on all the different gamut of software that's available out there and see what works best for you. All right, guys, so all in all, my wrap up is that you don't need a lot of money to get started on YouTube. Here's my recommendation. If you have a phone, record on your phone, build your DIY lights, and just the shop lights, or use a window. Just get that $30 lavalier mic that I have down in the description, and either edit on your phone or use one of those free pieces of software, and you're good to go. The most important thing is to start your YouTube channel. Just get started. Just don't be afraid of the quality. Don't try to compete with the big guys. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to improve my channel as I go, but I am so far from those big guys that it's not even funny. But I've only been doing this for a little less than a year, so I'm not expecting to be there. Just stay within your comfort level, stay within your budget, and get started. So hopefully you guys found this informative and useful. Please comment. Let me know if you have any comments about any of the gear I talked about, or if you have any recommendations on stuff that I didn't mention in this. Go ahead and leave that in a comment. Rate and subscribe if you find these videos useful. If you do subscribe, hit the little bell button next to the subscription button, and then you'll get notified when I put up a new video. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.